April Schmienkenopp, and I'm presenting today my paper, Intrinsic Motivation Engaging Students in Math, for Concordia University for the master's program. And here is my cohort that's going to be listening to me today.
I'm Linda Phillips. I teach first grade at Lee.
Jim Burns. I also teach first grade at Lee.
And I'm Gina Tardif, and I teach kindergarten at Lee.
And Gina is videotaping.
I'm the cameraman.
Okay. All right, so let's start. So the purpose for this study was that Simpkins, Davis, Keenan, and Eccles were talking about and stating in their paper that the U.S. economy has, ever since Sputnik, relied on sciences and math to further our society in America. Unfortunately, though, according to their research, the number of students obtaining degrees in math and science has actually decreased rather than increased lately. So why the sudden decrease in these fields? Have intrinsic, extrinsic rewards driven students to chase other careers that require less effort or provide a bigger payoff with more money? So that's kind of the purpose of the study that we started with. And then we brought it down to the classroom. So basically, it's math time. And 3 students are playing in the back with their shoestrings. A couple are staring off into space while you're doing math. Well, a couple kids are fighting in the back about who pinched who. Where's the teacher? The teacher's up front doing a great lesson, but still, she doesn't have their attention. So what is she going to do about that? Or what is he going to do about it? So Froylan said in his paper that teachers often struggle to maintain engagement and motivation in their students. So what can teachers do to solve this problem? Not only does the extrinsic system of rewards not always work long term, but it also can burden the teacher and slow down the flow of learning, which is what most teachers have found on their own. And then Froylan, Ora, Smith, and Hershert stated that intrinsically motivated students will seek to learn more about a subject or skill, both in school and at home, which we've seen when kids are excited about something, they'll go home and further explore about it, if they have a deeper understanding in learning and if they're intrinsically motivated. Where extrinsically motivated students are only interested in avoiding negative consequences of, if you don't do this, you're not going to go to recess, or acquiring some reward. You're going to get a marble, a sticker, some sort of token for doing that. And we found, it's kind of serious, that it isn't unusual for extrinsic dependent students to begin asking for rewards and in the process interrupt their own learning as they balance out whether, is this reward worth it or not to do my work? Okay? So, the motivation to do this study is that we were seeing that a lot of negatives were coming from extrinsic motivation, which I have used in my classroom, and a lot of teachers have used some sort of token system, giving out tickets, marbles, stickers, giving out, obviously, grades is another one that almost everybody uses. And so what we found was that motivation may stop once the motivation is removed, the motivator. Kaplan found that it produces negative indicators of achievement and well-being, and monetary rewards undermine the intrinsic motivation, so you're actually, the natural intrinsic motivation that first graders come to school with can actually start to go away as they participate more and more in monetary rewards. And, of course, the thing that all teachers know is that their teaching is interrupted as they try to maintain the token system as they're teaching. We also found out that intrinsic motivation, of course, has a lot of benefits and is enhanced when work is challenging and relevant to students, when their social relationships are supportive for the teacher and student relationship, when the environment is physically and psychologically safe, according to Kaplan, when threats, surveillance, evaluation, and deadlines come into play. A lot of times it undermines intrinsic motivation, according to DC and Ryan. And providing choice and building confidence is also going to help kids build that intrinsic motivation that they lack. All right, so what is intrinsic motivation and what is extrinsic motivation? Intrinsic motivation basically means what we know, it's self-directed. They're going to find interest in their own activities. They're going to not care whether there's a grade attached to it or consequences. They're going to do it because they love learning. Extrinsic is going to be something from the outside. It comes in the form of intangible rewards such as social approval, the teacher's happy with you, achieving good grades, or tangible rewards such as prizes, money, or the avoidance of both tangible and intangible punishments, according to Kaplan. All right. Okay, so the focus of my study was to increase intrinsic motivation and engagement for first grade students in the subject of mathematics, with an emphasis on problem solving. And when we talk about problem solving, you'll hear me say CGI, which we know encompasses a lot of things, but for the study today, CGI means problem solving, the cognitive guided instruction. All right, so we know that kids also need to have belief in themselves. They need self-efficacy, self-esteem to be built up, their confidence. If they have that, they will do better in class. Gilley and Gilley state that there is a connection between motivation and how kids feel about themselves. They've also talked about that evidence suggests that there are positive correlations between self-esteem and academic performances, self-confidence, success at schoolwork, and the successful functioning of the individual. So if they believe that they can do the problem, they're going to feel like they intrinsically want to do the problem. If they don't, then they're going to probably start to weigh out the consequences of the extrinsic rewards that they've been used to. Okay, so the methods. The setting where this research took place was an elementary school in a suburban residential area located in Orange County, California. The school consists of 26 credentialed teachers, 1 principal, 1 school psychologist, 1 speech therapist, 1 resource teacher, 1 librarian, 1 music teacher, 1 nurse, and 2 office personnel. And the average first grade class size is 24 pupils. The student population of 659 children consists of 2% African American, 9.6% Asian, 2.7% Filipino, 32.3% Hispanic or Latino, and 45% Caucasian. And the school has 18% socioeconomically disadvantaged students, 7% English language learners, and 11% are diagnosed as having a disability. Okay, but out of those 659 students, the participants were only the 15 first graders that I followed in this program. I did not include the kindergartners that were in my class. 21% of them were mixed race, 15% were Asian, 47% were Caucasian, and 16% were Hispanic. Of the 15 students, 15% were from low socioeconomic families, 15% were from divorced or single-parent families, and 85% were living with both parents present. All right, so who are the researchers? I was researcher 1, the intervention specialist. I teach first grade. I've been teaching for 15 years, and I teach in a middle-class suburban area in Orange County. The researcher 2, data analysis specialist, also taught first grade and has been teaching for 16 years. She teaches in a Title I school in a suburban area in San Diego, California. All right, so we came to what is going to be the whole basis of the research, and it's going to be that what Froyland states is the 3 basic intrinsic motivators, and the one is supportive teaching style. The teacher must give praise when a student masters a skill or achieves a goal, or is willing to take a risk or show creativity solving a problem or working on an idea. Another factor is self-expression or choice by the student. Giving students choice, of course. Froyland and Orris and Smith and Herscher pointed out that it will foster intrinsic motivation because it allows students to relate to their own learning when they have choices. A classroom that allows students to collaborate on a problem helps to create an environment where the students have a stake in what they are learning. And then the last one is goal setting. He says that in a study performed by Van Stinsky, Simmons, Lynn, Sheldon, and DC, children were self-motivated to finish a task if a goal was intrinsically communicated to them, such as, if you learn this, you'll become a better mathematician, which is opposite of, if I get a good grade on this test, I will earn a toy or I'll earn my parents' praise. Okay, so it's something, so teachers have to do a better job of setting goals and communicating those goals to them. All right, so here's how I took those 3 motivators and used them in my classroom. So the supportive teaching style, researcher 1 would meet with each student and look over their work from the previous day or the previous week and discuss how they are feeling and what they are thinking about their work. And she would continue to meet with each group during the week and apply support when needed. So kind of popping in with each group when I started to see them, get off task, or if someone seemed like unsure about what they were doing. Self-expression or choice by the students. Students would be given a chance to pick partners in the study and would be able to pick their own number choices when the time worked. In the past, I might have said to a student, that number choice is too low for you or too hard for you, and I would have guided them another way. But in this study, I did not ever give an opinion about what numbers they chose. And of course, they got to choose how they solved the problem. And then goal setting. Each beginning of the week, I would sit one-on-one with the students, and we would talk about a goal. And we would write the goal down, and we would look at their work. If they had a goal in mind right away, I would just write it. If they didn't, I would guide them to that goal. So it might be something such as, do you need to label your work more? Or, what do you think about picking a higher number choice? Or how do you feel about maybe trying a new strategy? If the students seemed like that they wanted to do that goal, I would write it down. If they didn't, we would keep working until they found a goal they wanted. So I never gave them a goal throughout the research. Okay, so this is how the actual plan evolved. Day one, students would meet with me at the table one-on-one, and they would set a goal for their week. And they would answer 2 focus questions. The questions were, do you think you're an okay, a good, or a great mathematician? And do you think CGI is easy, okay, or hard? And in this case, we're talking CGI as the problem solving. Then students would receive the same problem type that they were going to work on all week, and they would work on it alone that first day to solve it. And they would choose their own number. And they would also make a goal with me on day one. Day 2, students would work with a partner to solve the same problem type with different but similar number choices. So students were given the problem to glue on a big construction paper, and I would actually cut out their goals as well, and they would glue that on the back of the construction paper. Students discussed what strategies they would use to solve the problem, and then they would divide the paper in half. I never told them to do that; they just did it naturally, and then they each worked on their own strategy on their side of the paper. And then I provided support whenever they needed it. And then a lot of times what I noticed too is if they didn't get the same answers, they would talk through it. They would check each other's work. If someone couldn't think of a strategy or a way to do it, they would talk together. But as far as like working on one problem and one strategy together, they never did that naturally. Day 3, students briefly meet to discuss their work. So I give them about 5 minutes, and then they would come up and they would present, and it would look just something like that. And since there was only 15 of them, there was only 7 groups that had to present, so of course their attention was higher. But they also were more excited to see each other's work because it was bigger, I think, and because they were really ready to share it because they had already worked through it a day and discussed it. And then day 4, students receive a new similar problem, but now, and with similar number choices, but now again they solve it individually. Okay? So it's over pretty much a 4-day process. Alright, so collecting data, we found that there was 3 students that kind of were highlighted that made some significant changes. Student 1 started the intervention choosing the easiest numbers and saying that math was really hard. By the end, she was saying that she was choosing average. The student was choosing average numbers and at least felt that they were okay at math and that they were a great mathematician. That math was okay and they were a great mathematician. Student 5 went from thinking they were an average mathematician to a good one, thinking that math was hard, said math was hard, but they still felt like they had changed it, that they were a good mathematician. So they still felt like math was hard, but they still chose it. And at the same time, they still chose the difficult number. Oh boy. I'm getting along here. Okay, then student 8 started the intervention choosing the easiest number and saying that math was hard. And she was encouraged and then she started attempting more difficult numbers. And then at the end, she felt that math was still hard, but that she was a great mathematician. All right. Okay, so in the conclusion, 31% of kids improved what they felt about themselves as mathematicians. 50% maintained how they felt about themselves as mathematicians, and only 18.9% went down on what they felt. How they felt about math at the end, 40% improved on what they felt about math. 53% maintained how they felt about math, and only one student diminished on how they felt about math. Also, through the study, I realized there was one week where I picked really, it was a separating problem, and I decided that they'd had a successful week before, so I decided that I was going to do borrowing, and I hadn't really supported that enough, but I thought maybe that there was a leap that they could do that. And right away in the groups, I noticed people were off task. They weren't doing well. I noticed the day before that people had started at high numbers and went down to low. And so I stopped the intervention right away, and we sat and we talked about it. And then I redid it that week, and I started and gave them lower number choice, took the borrowing out. And I noticed that their confidence had just been shaken. They went down completely, and they didn't, it took them another whole week before they built their confidence back up. Almost everybody chose the middle selection. They didn't choose the higher ones as the one before. And they had to be encouraged to keep from choosing the low selection. After I built that up another week, then the last week, they all started picking high to middle. No one really went towards the low. So I think that it's that kind of conclusion is that it's really, you need to worry about what kind of number choices that you're picking. So for my next steps, I really think that plotting out which mathematical problem types, obviously the ones that are going to help the ones that have been mastered previously, will be important. And to study which number sets will both challenge but support the knowledge they've acquired, but not take away the confidence they've already built. I also think that the next research steps would be working in groups really did increase their enthusiasm, but I'm not sure that there might have been a better way to pick groups. I had them pick sticks, and then of course the last people got stuck with whoever wasn't picked, and so those groups weren't as successful. And I also didn't know how long should a group stay together. Should they be together 4 weeks because they build up a way to really work well together, or are they stuck with somebody who they don't work well together for 4 weeks? So that kind of needs to be a study. How long should groups stay together, and is it going to be effective for them to stay together longer, or is it better for teachers to pick groups? And also then there's always going to be those students that don't work well in a group, and so what are they going to need? They're going to need extra support, and I never did study that part about it. Those kids that aren't successful all the time in working in groups and working with the problems, they might need extra support. Brophy suggests that most issues in motivation and learning can be identified with many reasons, but one main issue is the students' need for protection of their confidence and making sure they can feel they can possibly succeed in the endeavor. So this reminds me of all those kids that are really reluctant to work. If they already feel like they can't be successful in the problem, maybe that's not just that they're lazy or they're afraid or they just don't want to, it's that they don't have the confidence. So then we need to start building that confidence. All right. So does anybody have any questions regarding the intervention or any comments on future steps that maybe I haven't thought of? Yes?
Did you collect any data on accuracy?
I didn't on this time, only because I was looking for motivation rather than success on problems, but that would be another next step, is to see now, did the groups also help with the accuracy of that's a good idea, of the problem.
I was wondering too, what kind of praise did you give them? You said you gave them praise if they...
Right. Basically, it was just kind of that supportive, leaning in and saying, especially when I was goal making, I would say, I really noticed that last week you went up and decided to try the higher number choice. I'm so excited you did that. How did that go? And or even pulling into I noticed that the week before you chose the low or the middle, and now you're on the low. Is there any reason for that? And then we could talk through that, and I could support him in that way and say, oh, but look here, you tried these strategies. I think you can do it. And 9 times out of 10, they would try the higher number selection when I would do that.
And then, did you also point out things that they did very well in their problem?
Yes, yeah, but I did try not to worry too much about, because they were all pretty successfully working on the problems, I didn't worry too much about that, except for when they would point out and that if they would say, like I did my 2 strategies and I couldn't get the right answer, then I would focus on that. But for the most part, I tried to stay away from getting the right answer and more the strategy of, feeling good about math and that they're risk-taking. Yeah. Okay, anything else?
It's interesting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
That was cool.
I sure